Joining us on the program now from an organisation called Common Grace, Alex Johnston. Alex, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Kia ora, thanks for having me.
When we say it's closer than we think, actually, when it comes to registering for voting, the day is today, right? This is a little bit last minute for some people, perhaps. But if we want to be involved in this democratic process, if we're not registered, it's almost too late, but not quite.
That's right, yeah. If you want to receive your postal ballots in the mail, then the deadline is midday today. So people could, if you've moved address in the last few years, or you're not sure if your details are up to date, you can go to vote.nz, really quickly update your details by midday, and you'll get your postal voting in the mail.
Yeah, okay, time to do that. But hey, hopefully for most of us, our details are similar and we'll already be registered to vote. Now, you guys have jumped in on this one in terms of Māori Wards, and I know that different people have different opinions on this. Let's put the colours on the mast here. You guys are in favour of it and have launched a campaign to encourage particularly people from a faith community to also support it. What's behind the campaign, Alex?
Yeah, that's right. So over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge hunger from many Christians nationwide as we have the issue of the treaty in the national spotlight, in politics and the media, even in our churches. There's been a real hunger and commitment from so many Christians to deepen their commitment to honouring Te Tiriti o Waitangi, both in our own lives and churches, but also at a government level, at the way decisions are made in our communities. And so we were the organisation behind the open letter from church leaders last year in affirming our commitment to Te Tiriti, which kind of saw a huge breadth of support from different denominations. And we were now wanting to turn the church's attention to these Māori Ward referendums. And these are happening in 42 council areas. Not every council is having a referendum. Auckland in particular is one of them that's not. But we see these as a really positive way to have ensure a diversity of voices at the council table as a small step towards that honouring that treaty covenant that we as the church played a key part in. But we know that this issue in particular is complex. It's often the topic of kind of heated conversation, and so we think that in our church communities, there's a really unique opportunity to have and create space for kind of curious, gracious conversations, get ourselves informed ahead of this important moment, and ground our thinking and decision making in light of our faith and listening deeply to the leadership of Māori Christian leaders as well and what they're saying. So that's what we're hoping to do at Common Grace, and we've created some resources to help churches do that, because we think we want to both raise awareness of the importance and the benefit of Māori Wards from our perspective, but also just help churches and individuals educate themselves and to prayerfully consider their vote in light of our Christian commitment to honouring the treaty.
Do you think there is room for a diversity of opinion on this issue within the body of Christ? As you say, it is a contentious issue. And hey, well done to you and your crew getting, as you mentioned, a diversity of Christian leadership to sign up to the statement around the Treaty Principles Bill. But I imagine there still will be a diversity of opinion within Christian churches, perhaps even within families about this particular issue. Is there space for diversity, for dialogue, for debate on this issue within the church? Or do you feel from your point of view, well, no, it's clear, if you're Christian, this is how you should feel about this?
Well, we certainly don't think that the Bible is a rule book on how you should vote, that there is a diversity of views, but we think that when we look at the life and ministry of Jesus, that and the biblical text, we can infer certain principles that should inform how we discern our individual votes when it comes to a decision like this. And so there are principles that are universally shared among most Christians, principles like loving our neighbour, ensuring we build communities where everyone can belong, where we honour the unique way that God has made us in our own cultural contexts and the unique contexts of these lands. And things like honouring our promises. And Te Tiriti o Waitangi is a promise made under God. And so we think that's a key part of shaping how we should look at this issue, as well as the fact that when we think about how to build communities where everyone has a voice, everyone can be heard, and has a stake and an influence in the decisions that get made about them. We believe Māori wards are one way that kind of vision of everyone having their unique voice honoured and heard at the table. That's one way to get us towards that vision. So with any decision, there's going to be diversity, but this
Yeah.
is the kinds of biblical principles that are shaping the way we look at this issue.
And even I think it's important for people to have a reason for what they believe. So if they have a strong opinion on this one way or another, at least they've done the research. At least they have considered this carefully and prayerfully before they cast their vote. And there's lots of different resources available for people to consider and perhaps to look at a number of different viewpoints on this one. What's the best way of doing that from your point of view, Alex?
Yeah, I think two really key things that we would hope people can consider is to listen listen to the voices and aspirations of tangata whenua in this conversation, particularly Māori Christian leaders and what they're saying about this topic. And that's some of the perspectives that we've sought to highlight in our resources.
Yep.
And the other thing is to consider this in light of being informed about our history and the history of local government in this land. And so under Article 2 of Te Tiriti, Māori communities were guaranteed decision-making authority over their own communities and their own well-being, and local government councils are one of the places where some of those key decisions are made. And so we think that if we look at this in light of our history and acknowledging the ways that the treaty hasn't been lived up to in the past, that's a key way to shape kind of source of information to draw from. So those are the two kind of sources that we're seeking to highlight in our resources.
Yep.
And certainly there's going to be lots of opinions out there. The third is considering this in light of biblical principles in our faith and thinking that through any decision we make can be shaped by our faith and biblical principles. And so that's what we're seeking to do through our resources.
Is it a good thing in some ways that the referenda are happening? Because I know that there were concerns from people saying, hey, they've changed the way in which we do democracy in New Zealand without the people having a vote. Yes, there's some heat in this. Yes, there's a bit of name calling and a bit of racism, let's call it what it is. However, is it at least good that we're able to have the conversation, that people are able to engage and go, hey, I wondered what that was about. Now I've looked into it. Now I suppose I've put some thought into this. And whichever way people vote on this, they've been able to engage with the process. They've been able to own this rather than this being something which has happened, a deal done in a council office with them having no say in it. Do you think this is an important part of it, or does it do more harm than good in your view, Alex?
I think there's certainly harm that will come from these referendums because we'll see a lot of stoking of fear and division as a result of this going to a public ballot, where there's a lot of misinformation out there and things like that. But nevertheless, the referendums are happening, so let's get informed about them. However, it's important to say that it's only Māori wards that are being put to a referendum. Mm-hmm. We have other ways that councils look to represent the different voices and perspectives in their community. Councils make decisions, for example, to have rural or urban wards because they want to make sure that rural voices are at the council decision-making table. Those types of decisions to establish those wards are not being forced to go to a public vote. Yeah. It's only Māori wards that are being singled out to be put to this public vote. And so we think that is fundamentally unfair and discriminatory. But we're having those referendums now, so let's all get informed and prayerfully consider our vote.
I think that's a good attitude to have in that regard. But and hey, you know, this is something, as I mentioned beforehand, that we do so carefully and prayerfully. The other part of that that verse that I was paraphrasing beforehand, to have a reason for the hopes and the views that we have. The other part of that verse, of course, is to do so with gentleness and respect. In the way which we quoted around this one, in the way which we research this and pray about it and come to our own conclusions, such an important thing for the body of Christ in particular to hold on to. If we do have differences of opinion on this one, let's connect together in a way which demonstrates that gentleness and respect, demonstrates looking for the best outcomes for others in a way which glorifies Christ.
Yeah, that's right. Our hope is that this is an opportunity for the church to show up in its best, uh, to see the church at its best. If we can have those safe and gracious conversations where the mana of everyone is honoured,
Yep.
but that means we need to not shy away from looking honestly at our history, looking at what our tangata whenua brothers and sisters are saying about this issue and how that is informed by the history we have. So it requires kind of courage and curiosity to look at honestly at our past, to consider the decision that's before us, and to kind of discern how this decision can help us go towards a more thriving future where everyone can belong, everyone's voice is heard and can be honored. And so I think it's both an opportunity and a challenge, right, around how we have that conversation. And that's the goal of our key resource is kind of a 2-hour, what we call a table talk. We get around the table, we watch some videos, hear some resources, and have a chance to discuss. That's held in a kind of safe and gracious way. That's the real goal of our resource that we're offering to churches.
Well, thank you for stepping into the fray on this one, an important issue and one that we could get terribly wrong, particularly in church communities. If people wanted to access that information, yes, some online information, but in particular that table talk resource, what's the best way of doing that, Alex?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, commongrace.nz/Māori Wards, and they can access that table talk resource, or there's also a short video from a range of church leaders that could be played in a Sunday service, just to try and invite that conversation and share the perspective of some church leaders who are supportive of Māori Wards. But, wherever people are coming to this conversation from, we hope those resources can be useful. And I think it's just, again, the opportunity to recognise this decision is an important one for our country, and therefore, as Christians, there's a role that we can play in that.
Making informed, careful and prayerful decisions, and some good resources and conversation starters at commongrace.nz. Alex, again, thank you for what you do. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for your time, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.